Whew, I gotta shake off the nerves a little bit. Let me just okay. So it's a chilly day today in Florida. I don't know if you guys are getting similar cold fronts everywhere, but today we actually had to squeeze the toddler into layers, long sleeves and stuff to get him off to preschool, and he did not appreciate. He kept being like, "I'm all done with this. I'm all done." And oh my gosh, it was both adorable and annoying at the same time. So hopefully you guys are keeping warm as well. I'll start by telling you a little bit about myself. My name is Janelle Elias. I work with high performing couples or couples with high demand lives or who are striving to be high performance to learn how to navigate that and hopefully avoid or maybe come back from that feeling of just being roommates or just getting by day to day and start building towards a place of real intimacy and um I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to say that word. Into me I see on YouTube. I'll have to find out the rules for that. But uh, to do that and just to start building real lasting growth. Sometimes when we're working through our relationship issues, it can be really easy to start something new or to have an argument. And then one of the resolutions to the argument becomes, okay, fine, then, we'll change this or that about how we go about doing things. And then that works out just fine for the first few days, maybe even the first few weeks. And then after that, all the effort just stops. So it becomes hard sometimes to really see the growth lasting consistently and being real as opposed to just talk. So I try to make sure that as I help people, it's going to be lasting growth that will actually stick rather than just the latest phase in attempts that don't really work in the end. I want to see real families and relationships get impacted this way. So that is what I focus on. A little bit about my background. I did start out initially in marriage and family therapy. It's what my little degree is about right over there. If you could see it, I'm pretty sure this camera is a little bit on the blurry side, but it does say marriage and family, couples marriage and family therapy. It's a master's degree. I was working through the state, working with families and everything. Um, but the typical healthcare system, fighting with insurances, the usual therapy way of going about doing things wasn't really working for what I was looking for. I wanted to help couples, not be part of the system. So I took a minute, took a step back, worked through corporate jobs and started a business as well. And through that, I also earned an MBA while I was in that process. I learned a lot about business, but I also learned that relationships still have the same kind of issues, whether they're the typical families that I was seeing when I was working more with the state or business couples, couples who are professionals who are just trying to make things work or trying to build an empire. The question kept coming up, how do we make our relationship last when we have so many things pulling at us in so many different directions? And how do we stay healthy and make each other a priority when there's no time, no energy, not a moment to spare? So it turns out that while I was working in the business in field and the corporate life and the MBA and everything, I was still teaching workshops. I was still helping couples as they would come across, maybe not in a formal fashion anymore, no longer as the therapist, but I still had knowledge of how these couples could be thriving and I wanted to share it. So it turns out you can take the girl out of counseling, but you can't take all that counseling knowledge out of the girl. So finally, I've just decided to let me just start sharing it in this platform. Let me stop going on a case by case basis, the various people that I meet who ask me for advice or whatever, and start just putting it out there because a lot of this information sometimes can either be behind a paywall or waiting for you in therapy, which I know is not always a good fit for every couple out there. There are couples, like some of my friends, my own family members, some of them who feel like therapy's not for them for whatever reason. They might say, "Well, I've tried it and it just wasn't a good fit. It didn't work," or maybe the resources aren't there. We can't find what we're looking for near us or in the right price range or maybe covered by insurance if we have insurance. So I'm bringing this to you so that there's no more barriers. You can start getting the information you need to start seeing a difference in your relationship. And I'm doing these live sessions so that we can all come together as needed and I can help work through some of the specifics for your relationship. Because I know that this is a lot of information and the way that one couple is going to apply it for their specific situation, what is and is not going to work for them, is going to be very different to the next person. And so I could tell you all day, well, here's how we communicate better. And here's the tool for resolving conflict or fighting fair. But as you go implementing it, as questions come up, feel free to come through these lives or submit your question ahead of time. I do have the link for submitting the questions at the bottom of every video uh, so that I can come here and help cater the information to your situation if possible or answer some clarifying questions. Whew. Grab some water. So, on that note, um, I will go ahead and actually, before I get to the first submitted question, I want to tell you a little bit about what I've done so far and why. So, we've opened up this channel, and the first thing I did was set out a 7-part series on things we can do right now to start seeing improvement in our relationships. The reason for that is because though I have a lot of information I want to share with you guys, I'm very excited about putting this stuff out there for you. Sometimes the more in-depth knowledge or the more advanced stuff, the book knowledge, the why do humans and relationships tick and work the way that they do? Like let's go behind the scenes and let's dig around inside and let's like understand better so we can operate from a better place. That's nice and all, but sometimes that takes a bit of like layered knowledge, like understanding this foundation and then building upon that and then building upon that before you really get that eureka moment that's like, ah, this is the thing that's going to make a difference for us. And I didn't want to start there. I didn't want to start with the foundation because that's nice and all, but sometimes if we're struggling in our relationship, we need to see results now. We don't have necessarily all of the time to be building a foundation to get around to seeing progress. So the first thing I set out there was this 7-part series. I believe the 7th and last one is coming out this week on Thursday. Yeah. So it's specifically what can we do right now if things are super stressful or they're breaking down, or maybe we already feel like roommates, or maybe there's built in resentment in the relationship, or maybe we're on autopilot and we're just a little bit emotionally checked out from each other. What are some tweaks we can start making as of right now to start seeing some progress there? And then we can build on that once we're starting to feel a little bit better, building a better foundation with that information and all of that. So, if you haven't had a chance to check it out, absolutely do. I've got it on a playlist. You can go through. I do recommend in order, but I'm very excited to start seeing some of the results coming from that one. All right. So, time for our first submitted question. I did get a couple of people who took advantage of that form, the link that I have at the bottom of my videos, and they submitted some questions ahead of time. So, if you are currently watching this video when it's no longer live, you're watching it like re-recorded or the playback, and you're wondering how you can submit your questions too, definitely find any other video in my channel, and you're going to find at the bottom of the description there the form, the link to submit your questions. And you can choose to do so anonymously. You don't have to identify yourself. That's fine. And if you don't have time to come in for this live or for the next live where I go over those questions, you can always watch back on the playback, on the replay. I'll get better about the terminology. So, M submitted the question, how do I get my partner back if he's backed off and checked out emotionally, and you're the only one doing the work to keep you two together. So it looks like I do in the form ask for a little bit more background information just to help me better answer the question. I'm not going to disclose some of the more details that are put in the form because that's, privacy and all that. But this question, they know that is going to be shared. So it's okay. But just so that we know contextually, we are talking about a marriage in this one. So, how do we get our partner back if he's backed off and he's checked out emotionally and you're the only one doing the work to keep you guys together? You know, I have to acknowledge the exhaustion involved just in how this person's wording it. But having been there, maybe not in that exact situation, but I understand. I mean, marriages go through their seasons, they go through times where one person is a little bit more actively engaged in the process and maybe someone's a little bit more checked out. And also, I've seen plenty of couples in these kind of situations. It's actually more common than you would think. Um, so I do want to just acknowledge just the absolute exhaustion it can to be in a situation like that where you're feeling like I'm the only one in this. Are you still even interested in still being in this relationship? Why are you not acting like it? you know? Um, the first thing I would encourage you to do is we need to find out why he's so checked out. And there's a few main reasons that the themes that tend to like come up over and over again. Of course, without knowing your specific situation, I can't like pinpoint, this is what it is. But for the most part, I'll speak to the most common ones, and chances are pretty good they're gonna one of these is gonna, or more than one maybe, might apply to you. If this is still not quite what's going on, then definitely feel free to reach out again, give me a little bit more context, and I'm happy to help with that. But usually, when one partner's more checked out, there's a couple of different reasons, and I wanna actually write this down myself so I don't lose my train of thought. Um, and okay, cool, so I won't forget. So one of the most obvious ones, just the low-hanging fruit, it's very easy to pinpoint it, although it's not everyone's situation at all, is that if there's already been some kind of betrayal in the relationship, the person who felt betrayed is more likely to start pulling back in the relationship and kind of go, you know what? I can't give you my heart, or you don't deserve my time and attention. You have forfeited the right to like I'm still in this relationship technically. I'm not leaving yet or maybe at all, but I'm really not in it either. I'm checked out. Now, I do want to explain that John Gottman, one of the major researchers for relationship, explains that betrayal is defined as just, well, he defines it as any time a partner reaches out in what he calls a bid for connection and that bid is not met. And what I mean by that is a bid for connection can be anything as small as, let's say, I am very excited about something minor, a TV show of mine that I absolutely love. They just confirmed that the season is getting renewed. So now I'm really excited. We're going to see those characters again. And I run to my spouse and I'm like, hey, guess what? The season for this show, they just confirmed it's going to be renewed. I'm so excited. That that is a small example of a bid for connection. I'm reaching out to my spouse to share with them something that's important to me in the hopes that if I matter to them, it will be important to them too. Even if they don't really care about the show, but they know that it's important to me. And so it's like, I love that for you kind of vibe, right? So it can be as small as as minute as that kind of a small bid for connection, or it can be much larger. It can be, hey, I miss you. Let's have cuddle time or something, and the other partner just being like, "No, I can't right now. I'm not there. I just but however it manifests, the point is that if a partner reaches out for connection to their significant other, and for whatever reason, maybe it's on purpose, maybe it was an accident, maybe we didn't even realize it was a bid for connection, and somehow the ball gets dropped. Maybe in my example of the TV show series, if I went to my husband and I told him about that, and if he had been like busy, stretched thin, not realizing what's going on right now, and kind of just gives me a dismissive answer, not to be mean, just because he's spread thin and just it didn't register or something, that could be like where that request for connection gets missed, and now there's been a betrayal. Now that's a really, really small example, but it is one way that this research says betrayals can manifest themselves. They're not on purpose, they're not malicious, it's not to be mean or to specifically try to betray our partners, but he's emphasizing the point that betrayal happens on this really microscopic level in these tiny little interactions. And sure, it can build and it can grow and it can be as huge as fully breaking up. You know, the betrayal of I said I would be with you forever and I've just changed my mind. I am going back on that promise. We're breaking up now. Bye. Or it could be infidelity and or cheating, you know, like there's all these like ranges of it, but it's all still betrayal. So I mentioned that because if someone has experienced betrayal in the relationship, which according to John Gottman, all relationships experience some form of betrayal, even if it's in those small little um, ways that they express themselves in daily life. Maybe not everyone has experienced the really big ones that we think about, the dramatic examples, but everyone at some point drops the ball with each other. We're not perfect, we're human. The thing is not whether or not there's little instances or expressions of betrayal, it's what we do about it. So, are we repairing the situation? Are we coming back and saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you were trying to express this to me or you were requesting a hug. I didn't hear you. Let me fix that now. Let me give you that hug." Or I'm listening now. Go ahead. Tell me all about your show. Or if we really did something to drop the ball, you know, trying to make up for it with like dinner or I don't know, I'm coming up with random examples just to illustrate the point. But the point is that repair work. Are we going back and making up for it, making up and then making up for things and repairing and um, working to smooth it out. So it's not does a relationship experience betrayal, it's what does the relationship do when those moments come up. If it's a really big betrayal, the process to repair is going to be much larger and lengthier and more complex and layered, but still about the same in terms of what needs to be done to, you know, apologize, rebuild the trust, make up for it, whatever. And this is probably going to be a series of other videos in some future time. But the point being, you know, in this case, if M, going back to your question, you know, if one of the reasons happens to be like your spouse is backed off or more checked out and not really interested in putting work into the relationship, feels like you're the only one doing it because there have been a series of whether small or big betrayals and we haven't been doing our repair work, then that's kind of reason number one. And the reason that's important is because once we understand the root cause, we can start dealing with how to fix it. One solution is not necessarily going to work for everyone, depending on the situation. So, if this case, the relationship is starting to drift apart a little bit because there's been a string of reaching out for connection, whatever that might look like, little bit of like missing each other, not quite being there for each other, or pulling away emotionally in those kind of ways, then or full on like really dramatic, larger scale betrayal, then that restoration of trust and repair of the situation is going to have to be there first before any spouse is going to be willing to start putting in the work to fix things together. It's almost a I've been hurt, so I am now going to guard my heart and I'm going to be over here protecting it from you because you've hurt me. Um, if you're interested in this at all, I'll be over here. Is that the best attitude to have in a relationship to make it last a lifetime? Of course not. But we're human and we hurt and we react sometimes different kinds of ways when we feel hurt. So, for better or worse, if the reason for the pulling away is due to these little moments of missing each other in that connection, or little betrayals or large betrayals, then first we're going to have to start working on rebuilding the trust and repairing some of those tears before that spouse who has been injured, who is kind of like pulling back and almost as a self-defense mechanism, will usually ever be willing to start being like, okay, I will participate in this repairing of the relationship that you are trying to do. They do often reach a point where is the repair work, the fixing of things starts to feel good again, and if you're doing it right, and just naturally the inspiration to reciprocate and be like, you know what, I see the effort you're doing. I see how you're trying to fix things for us. What can I do in return? How can I romance you right back? You know what I mean? So it can reach that point where they start feeling inspired to reciprocate, but first we need to repair the trust and start fixing some of those rifts that have happened. Now, how do we do that? It's going to vary so much. It's really going to depend on what kind of betrayals happened, like how long they've been going on, how deep they run, in order to know what are the best ways to repair it. Some good starting points are would be I would recommend going back to the 7-part series video that I just finished completing, or will the last one will be completed this Thursday. Uh, just because I do give some pretty good examples there of how to do activities that end up becoming repair work, from learning how to validate our spouse's feelings correctly to how to date them again and pursue them and stuff. So things like that. But it's really, again, going to depend. Let's say that that's not the case. In this relationship with M in particular, like I said, this was the low hanging fruit. This was one of the more obvious reasons. But in this case, M, if you're listening, maybe you're sitting there going, that's nice and all, but we've never, had moments of like cheating or major betrayals that I can think of. Sure, sometimes we pull away from each other, but that doesn't sound like that's the reason, right? In those cases, or if that's not the case, a second major reason why sometimes spouses start to pull away is just that we get comfortable. And it's not ideal, but we are humans and we are creatures of habit. And sometimes we just start getting into our comfort zone and we get a little lazy and we just stop putting in the effort. It's not necessarily intentional. It's not like, your husband might be going, "Ugh, well, I'm done putting any effort into this relationship. Bye." But when we're first dating at the beginning, especially if it's a very whirlwind romance type of thing, it's really easy to put effort into the relationship because we're inspired to. Even if it's not whirlwind romance, when we meet someone and we like them that much, we wake up thinking about them. We're thinking about them all day. We talk to our friends about them or our coworkers, send little messages throughout the day, planning the next date or outing we're going to go on, or the next way we're going to surprise them. Maybe on our drive home, we see something and we want to buy it for them, even if it's like a tiny little gesture, right, of our feelings or something. We go to bed, send the little good night text, but that's effort. It's almost obsession at that point. That's effort that's being put into the relationship, but we don't feel like we're putting in effort because we're so inspired and motivated by those feelings of like, oh my gosh, this person is so great. I can't believe this is real. The Twitter pated feeling and the rose colored glasses. It's easy then, to the point that we don't realize sometimes we are putting in effort. We are pursuing and courting that person. Then real life starts setting in, the rose colored glasses fade. Maybe we get married or move in together or settle into commitment. And life stressors take a front stage and they start taking up more of our focus. And suddenly it's like, yeah, I love you, but you're not a fire that I need to put out right now. You're not necessarily needing my attention. as much as the boss yelling at me at work or the other commitments going on, which isn't necessarily always true, but well, that's how it feels sometimes, right? Um, After some time, when it's no longer natural to put in effort into the relationship, we can get comfy. We can like settle into our comfort zone and almost expect our relationships to run on autopilot. I'm already married to you. I'm not going anywhere. I haven't broken up or tried to move out. We're not separated. So we're married. This is a marriage. Good enough. But in reality, in order to keep the relationship healthy long term and make it over time, we still need to be putting in a certain amount of effort. And we don't necessarily stop to think about that. And sometimes even the idea of thinking about it is exhausting. It's like, I barely have anything left for myself or my self care at the end of the day, much less do I have time to be trying to send little messages or plan dates or do any of these things. Like, I married you. Isn't that enough? No, it's not enough, but I'm just explaining how easy it is to fall into that kind of rut, that kind of routine. So, one of the, if that is the case for your husband, then he's not putting in effort, not because he doesn't want to, but because he's just tired. And that doesn't make it okay. It doesn't mean, oh, well, he's tired. He gets a pass. Like, I'm sure you're tired too. We're all tired these days. Like, we still have to be maintaining our relationships. If you have kids or if you have a pet or a plant, you can't just bring the pet home or buy the plant or, have the child and just never give it time, attention, or anything to that person or item. In the plant's case, we still need to be finding the time to water the plant or to take care of the pet or to love on the children and help do homework with them and do all the other things. It may not be what we want to do, but because we have made a commitment to raise those kids or take care of that pet, um, it's what we need to figure out how to do. And the relationship is not that different. We made a commitment to be with each other, hopefully for life. In order for it to last a lifetime, this is what it's going to take. So, what do we do if that's the reason? And he's like, I've got nothing left. Sorry, too bad. Honestly, it's worth the conversation because maybe he's not realizing that he's doing it, right? It's very possible that he's just doing the day-to-day thing and assuming everything's fine, not realizing that actually it's crumbling right before his eyes and the relationship is falling apart, but he doesn't necessarily feel those feelings the way you're feeling them, and so the awareness piece might not be there. And usually in this kind of relationship, if I know anything about these situations at all, M has probably spent the last God knows how many months or years trying to tell husband that we are not happy right now. The things are not okay. We are not fine. I am unhappy. I need you to put effort into the relationship. I need you to, I'm assuming, take me out on dates. I need you to make me feel special, things like that. Right? So it's not like, oh, he's not aware because you haven't told him. It's like he might not be aware because he's not stopping to realize, and there's a difference. I have seen time and time again when I first sit down with a couple in some kind of a coaching session or before when I was doing the counseling sessions, one of my first get to know you questions would be on a scale of 1 to 10, rate your relationship. Like, tell me how satisfied you are. Do you know how many times one partner would rate the relationship relatively high, let's say a 7 or maybe an 8 or a 6, depending on things, and the other spouse rates it like a 2? Lost count. It is so common. And usually the one who rated it higher will kind of look at the one who rated it lower in absolute shock. Like, why are you saying that? Things are not that bad. Why are you exaggerating? Or I never knew you felt that way. If you did, why have you never you should have said it. You told me sooner. And usually the one who rated it number 2 or, like, the relationship lower, they'll say, "I've been trying to tell you. I've been nagging you about this. I've been crying at you, telling you how unhappy I feel or blah, 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 and you're just not listening." And he's not trying to not listen, but he's not feeling the weight of what you're trying to communicate. Sometimes it's a communication thing where she kind of needs to learn how to say things in a way that he'll actually listen, and he needs to learn how to listen in a way that where his own biases and his own thoughts and his own filters won't get in the way of what she's trying to say. But again, maybe they're excellent communicators and they've just learned how to very effectively communicate to each other just how much they don't like each other. Like that's absolutely a thing. Communication tools don't solve all relationship problems ever. But I can't know until I speak to you guys and learn like a little bit more about that situation. Regardless, I'm illustrating the point that sometimes a spouse can be absolutely miserable in a relationship and the other one be none the wiser. Even though the miserable one feels like they have tried to communicate this to them over and over again and it's just falling off on deaf ears. Eventually, sometimes we'll tell ourselves they're not listening because they don't care. Like they know that we're unhappy because we've told them. So clearly they must just not care. And they're just checked out and they don't care and they don't love me anymore or things like that. It's possible. Maybe they have stopped love. The loving feeling has gone away. Can we get that back? Absolutely. But other times it may not be that. They might be blissfully thinking unaware, thinking that their marriage is perfectly fine and everything's fine. And of course my spouse loves me and of course they know that I love them. And the message has just not sunk in yet. It's not sinking in that the other spouse is absolutely miserable. So if they're not understanding the weight of how badly we need some change, we need to improve, we need to fix things, you're not going to see in them necessarily the drive to try and repair things yet because they don't get it. They haven't, it hasn't gotten through their skulls yet that there is change that needs to happen. So it's very possible in your situation, M, that maybe one of the reasons could be he's just not understanding yet um, how much you need to see progress between the two of you. And if that's the case, my recommendation is not to try to stress it to them again because clearly you have been, right? You've probably tried. If you haven't tried, encourage you to try. But chances are good that you haven't just been sitting idly by with a big old, plastic smile on your face pretending everything's fine. Chances are at different times maybe you have communicated that things need to improve. So what I would recommend instead is that you look into some communication tools that could help you get the message across to him in a way that will actually get the message to sink in. Just because you have been trying to communicate something doesn't necessarily mean that it has been sent in the, if you'll excuse the radio metaphor, in the right frequency for him to receive it. It's not any fault on your end. I'm not blaming him either. It's just maybe the tool through which you guys been trying to communicate just hasn't been sufficient. You haven't, nobody teaches us this when they raise us, when they send us off to school or whatever. Very few people are like, well, here's how you properly communicate to another human being so that they will actually listen. And here's how we really listen so that we understand, you know? So look into some communications tools. I've included some in my videos. I should probably do more content on this as well. But assume that maybe the weight of it hasn't sunk in yet and give him a chance to fully understand that the change is needed and then see if that helps. If it still doesn't, it is possible, and I hate to say it because my heart's already breaking thinking about it, that he just doesn't want to. That happens. Maybe he is kind of sticking his fingers in his ear, la la la, head in the sand, doesn't acknowledge that there's a problem because he doesn't want to acknowledge it. doesn't want to come to that reality. If things are really wrong, then he'll have to do something about it, and he just doesn't really want to. And if so, my heart hurts for you, but I do need to remind you that we can't force people to do things they don't want to do. The only person we can control is ourselves. And so you can try to work on some of your own happiness, work on your own like satisfaction. What is going on in life right now that you can be doing for yourself to fill yourself with more joy and with greater peace, and maybe revisit the conversation in a therapeutic environment with the spouse to figure out what has broken along the way that he just doesn't want to put the effort in. The challenge is a lot of the times this kind of couple, the one who's checked out will also probably not want to see a therapist. They're like, we're fine. We don't need that. So the conversation needs to be had. Sometimes we got to put our foot down and be like, look, we need help. We cannot dig ourselves out of this by ourselves. And that's okay too. It is okay to try to get out of a situation with some help, with some tools, instead of just always ever on our own strengths. But the third reason that I want to mention, just in case it's not any of those, one of the more common reasons why a spouse may be checked out and not really putting in much effort into the relationship could be external factors. It could be something that might actually not have anything to do with you. Not that you are not attractive enough or somehow he doesn't love you anymore and the feelings are just not there. It could just be that he is stressed out at work, or he might be not realizing that he's carrying some depression. And his way of coping with that is to distract himself with work or with hobbies or something else, so that if he doesn't stop to think about it, then it's not real. um, it doesn't make any of it okay. But understand that it's very possible, if this is one of the reasons, that it's not on you. I mean, I would argue that in all three of them, it's not necessarily entirely on you. Um, it takes two to fix things. But if he's stressed out about something or depressed or maybe feeling inadequate, sometimes that happens, especially with men, where if they put a lot of pressure on themselves to have it all together for the family, just like we women tend to put a lot of pressure on ourselves to s- be there for the family in every possible way. And so if so maybe he's not getting the promotions he was hoping for at work, or if he's not maybe bringing in the kind of income that he would like, that he expects of himself, or if physically his health is not there and he's feeling unattractive, or whatever slew of things could be happening that could be impacting how he feels about his own life, that could reflect in how much he may or may not be trying to avoid being home, with the constant reminder of his failure that no one has called him. You know, um, things like depression. Did you know that in men, it tends, well, women as well, but statistically, it tends to manifest itself more as frustration and anger and overall irritation and grumpiness than it does ever shedding a tear. He could very well be depressed and not even be aware of it himself. He's just irritated all the time. I think the internet calls it irritable husband syndrome. um, but there could be a slew of things externally that could be going on that might have nothing to do with you. And therefore, you cannot be blaming yourself. The only thing you can do is try not to lean on him for your own happiness and satisfaction, and try to have those conversations with him. At the end of the day, any of these reasons or others that I may not have mentioned, like, we can't know what's going on with him until you talk with him. And so if the communication piece is a little bit either not there all at all, or we've tried to communicate and we're just not getting through to each other, or we try to communicate and one or both people get really defensive and we can't seem to just listen to each other without reacting and things like that, then we might need either a professional to step in and help or some tools to help us communicate a little bit better. There are excellent books on this as well. But something to help interrupt these patterns, these ways that we've been trying to communicate before that haven't been working, communicate a new kind of way that do allow us to hear each other in order to fully understand where is this coming from. Is it me? Am I no longer attractive to you? Is it external? Do I need to be supporting you through something that I didn't even realize you were going through? And if so, how can I support you best? Is it us? Do we just have so much baggage and so much history that we need to start doing some repair work? And then how do we do that? Because again, depending on what the situation is, it may be more layered, more complex, take longer than other things. But all of it has to boil down to where is the being checked out coming from, and in order to know like how to fix it and what are the next steps. So it's hard to know that without knowing your guys' situation. Um, if you haven't had the kind of open conversation with each other where you're really hearing each other, and not just the words, but the heart behind it as well. And that's not a skill everyone's just born knowing. It takes practice learning how to have that level of communication. There's no shame in not having perhaps had that up until now. But it does need to start with a conversation saying, "Hey, I'm noticing this. I want us to last a lifetime. Can you tell me what's going on your end? What are some thoughts or some feelings or whatever so that I can know how to meet you halfway? What do we need in order to make this work?" So hopefully some of that helps. If this still isn't any of the reasons, or if there's more that I can help dive into further, you've got my contact link at the bottom of all of the videos. Definitely feel free to submit another question or more details. But I do hope that this is helpful. I do recommend some of the work by John Gottman. He does excellent work as far as helping couples break through those barriers of communication in a way that I think is really easy, simple to understand. Um, but it's all practice. Like it can sound really nice on paper and be easy to say, but walking the walk is a lot easier said than done. Like it can be tricky because not only do we have to be learning a new skill, which feels awkward, but we also have to be fighting through our own insecurities and obstacles and reactions that come up that we want to, and like they may be hurt, but we're hurting too. And like, how do we have that conversation without each other's stuff coming out at each other, right? So it can be tricky, it can be a balance, but it's practice. It's gaining some tools or gaining a little bit of help in whatever format will help, is more acceptable to you. I don't want to assume that everyone is so willing to go to therapy. Like, I understand that. So, maybe get yourself a relationship coach or speak to your community leader, a spiritual mentor. Um, Pick up some of these excellent books, materials on it. But somehow, let's try something different to interrupt that pattern and then practice it until it starts feeling a little bit less awkward, you know? Hopefully that helps. Um, let's see. I'll answer one more for now. I think we're kind of running right about the time pretty soon. So let me see if I can make this next one a little bit more simple. But I did want to make sure that I did some justice with her situation because so many of us have been there. It's so easy to feel so disconnected and not really understand why, because maybe nothing that you can pinpoint has taken place in the relationship to be like, this is why we're so distant now. But let's see. How can I get through to my partner? Oh, Michelle is the one asking this one. How can I get through to my partner to listen to me instead of automatically getting defensive when I bring up anything that's been bothering me? It's like every time I say something upset him, I'm going to assume it says every time I say something, it upsets him. It's like every time I say something, it upsets him, or maybe that upsets him. He has something that upsets him even more, and I'm left apologizing. Okay, I think I understand. Every time I say something that maybe, like, Michelle is upset about, he has he's got that one-upping upsetness. I can understand that one quite a bit. How can I get through to my partner so you can listen to me instead of getting automatically defensive? So, what happens here is a very pervasive problem that actually I blame pop culture for. our our movies and our music and our books, not the self-help ones, the fantasy ones, um, tell us that in arguments there has to be a winner and a loser. And if I'm more upset and I can somehow blame you for it, then I win and you lose. And you owe it to me. And now you have to do the repair work to fix things with me. Ugh, this hair is driving me crazy. I might just tie it back. And I don't know why that's such a popular concept, but here's a newsflash for some people. We can both be hurt. We can both be upset about something. And the fact that you're hurt doesn't negate mine. And the fact that I'm hurt doesn't outdo yours. But sometimes certain partners, maybe we already know this. We're enlightened and we know these things, but we're with someone who does believe or does tend to have this pattern of, oh, well, if we get into an argument, I'll just find something to be more upset about. So I'm the winner and you owe things to me. Um, that can be really tricky to deal with. So, speaking to that belief in general, let's bust some myths here. Um, I think I already kind of started mentioning your hurt doesn't invalidate mine. My hurt does not invalidate yours. We can both be hurt and they're both valid. So if we're having an argument where I bring up something that maybe was a disagreement and I didn't realize that in that disagreement we ended up triggering each other's buttons and insecurities and things. Um, when I bring up the argument or what I'm hurt about, I'm obviously going to come to the conversation from my point of view, from my lens, and I'm only seeing how I'm feeling because I have no way of reading your mind and knowing how you're feeling, right? Um, but being able to hear each other out, pause on the reactions, and just listen is another one of those skills that takes genuine practice. It's tricky. I was actually just talking to a couple a few weeks ago whose homework it is to practice that because gather my thoughts here. I actually did a video, and that's why I paused to think. I did a video over this last 7-part series where I mentioned the skill of being able to listen to someone and just hear things from their point of view without reacting. It's easier said than done, but it's not impossible. If we can get mad, have a conversation with someone, slam the car door, walk into the office, whoop, and immediately go, "Good morning, Jill. Hi, John. Yeah, hi, everybody," and not be speaking from that place of anger that we were just in 2 seconds ago in the car, then we can obviously choose our tone and how we speak to someone, even when we're heated, even when we're upset. Or we can take a minute to calm down and then come back to the conversation. But practicing listening to the other person, hearing them out, empathizing with how they might be feeling about the situation, while still reminding ourselves that this is their truth, this is how they feel, and it doesn't mean that my truth is not true. It just means that this is how they are feeling. That's a really big skill. The order of how it should go is typically something along the lines of someone has to take turns being first. We can't both talk at each other or we won't listen. But Whoever you decide goes first, let's say person A versus person B, right? Person A decides that they're going to be the listeners this time, and they give person B a chance to vent. What is it about our recent argument that hurt you the most? Why are you so upset? And person B is just like, you did this and you did that, and oh my gosh, I can't believe you, blah, blah, blah. While that's happening, person A, who is listening, should be actively practicing trying to hear person B out. And rather than thinking all of the reaction things or what they're going to say in response or how that's not true and that's not what I said and oh, but you hurt me more, that stuff will come. But in this moment of listening, the focus should just be how do they feel from their point of view? Even if their point of view were totally flawed. Let's say it's all a series of misunderstandings and they think this awful thing that is now causing them like they're hurt, but it's actually not true. That's not what happened. And as soon as I can clear things up, they're going to feel foolish for going that far in their heads, right? But all of the defending ourselves or explaining our side or talking about our hurt, which might be bigger than theirs or whatever, needs to, in this very moment, get pushed to the side and just pause to hear person be out and validate them, empathize with them, saying, I hear you. I could see how if I were in your shoes, I too would probably be feeling a certain kind of way. I hear you tell me that this hurt you in these kinds of ways. We're not admitting fault yet or that they're right or they're wrong or anything like that. We're just making them feel heard. I hear you tell me that this event hurt you in this kind of way. Right? That's step 1. Once person B is done venting and doing the thing, person A has been listening and will hopefully respond back with one of those like validating statements. We'll say, I hear you. Here's actually what I heard you tell me, right? You feel upset. You feel betrayed. You feel whatever you feel. We're not saying they're right or wrong yet. We'll get to that. But first, just let them feel heard. Let them feel seen, maybe for the first time ever. Who knows? If we got it right, person B is going to be like, yes, you understand. Finally. Thank you. Sometimes when I'm feeling sassy with my husband, I'll throw in was that so hard? or um quick, check your pulse for me. Did that kill you? Like, was it so difficult to just hear me out? I probably shouldn't do that. But the point is that we know we nailed the validation, like hit the nail on the head when we see that reaction in them of like, yes, that's what I've been trying to tell you. Right. If we haven't gotten it right, if we misheard them, or if the human error came through and we're like, we we s- we went wrong somehow in trying to explain to them how we did hear them. Maybe we started getting into our own defensiveness again accidentally or something. I don't know. Whatever the case may be, if we didn't get it right, or maybe we missed part of it, or they didn't explain it quite right, so the way we validated kind of missed the mark somehow, you're gonna see that reaction in them because they're gonna go, no, that's not it. It's that da 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 da, and they clarify, right? Or somehow they will typically correct you. They're gonna like if you said, "Oh, I see how that left you feeling betrayed," but maybe they weren't feeling betrayed. Maybe they were feeling insecure. I don't know, angry, whatever. Um, they might say, "I'm not betrayed. I'm trying to tell you that made me really mad." And explain, explain, explain. So they're gonna correct you. So you're either gonna get a, "No, that's not it. Let me explain it better," or you're gonna get a, yes, finally, thank you. And they're gonna like calm down a little bit. You're gonna if we were a DEF CON, I'm never good at these. 1 or 5, whatever's the most bad, they're gonna start coming down a few notches because something magical happens in us when we actually feel seen or we feel heard. That's why it's so important to do that first. Yeah. Um, then person A can be like, okay, I have heard you. We're gonna address that in just a second. But can I have a turn now? Like, can I now tell you, like, I heard you out. Can you hear me out now? And now it's person B's turn to practice the same thing, to listen to person A talk about not the rebuttal, not the answer or the response to person B's like accusations or something. Just tell them what your experience is, what your point of view was, how you were hurt, maybe how much worse your hurt is if you have to. Although we shouldn't necessarily have to be comparing hurts because again, it's not going to do anything to doesn't invalidate or take away from the other person's pain. But if person A is now expressing how they feel and what happened and how everything the way it went down hurt me this and this kind of way, in theory, applying this practice correctly, person B should be practicing listening to person A from person A's point of view, how they would feel if they were person A and understanding their truth, even if we don't agree. So hopefully, if this is done correctly, person B is listening, person A is finally getting it out there, and person B is like, okay, I have heard you now. Here is my statement. Like saying the thing to make them feel validated. Like, I hear you. I can understand how, from your point of view, you would be feeling this kind of way. I think I get it. Did I understand you correctly? And person A might be like, yes, you get it. Thank you. Or no, that's not quite it. And the correction. Regardless, we do this back and forth a few times. And a lot of the times, the problem doesn't even need to get solved. Once we feel that the other person has understood us and where we're coming from, sometimes the thing we were arguing about just dissipates. It's not even that important anymore. Other times, through this back and forth, the solution kind of presents itself. It's like, oh, so what we need to do is just make sure that the next time we don't, da 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 da. That's fine. Alternatively, once we both have felt seen and understood with our own version of the truth, um, we can then get into problem solving mode. But at that point, it just feels so much better because it's no longer you versus me versus who's more wrong and who's going to win the argument. It becomes we're a cohesive team together and we're the problem is the bad guy. How do we tackle this together? It feels a lot less combative. It's just better overall. So that's a technique for how to resolve that kind of thing to eliminate the tit for tat, keeping score, whose hurt is worse. Because at the end of the day, if both of our hurts are valid, then there is no scoreboard, right? Um, Now, how do you get your partner to utilize that tool? That's a separate matter. One could just be maybe they don't know, and you could show them this video, and we can explain the process, and hopefully they can practice it and just start getting better about it. Two, they might have some deeper like beliefs that tell them if I can be right in all arguments, then I never have to apologize and I never have to be the one who's at fault or responsible for fixing anything. And that's not a great way to look at relationships because that's not going to be conducive to making it a lifetime. So hopefully they can work through that belief either with you together or in their own space when they're doing their own work and improvement. But if they want things to work long term with you, then we need to start learning how to have those kind of conversations with each other. And if they're absolutely refusing to, after you've talked about it, after maybe you tried practicing this kind of tool and they're like, no, at the end of the day, I'm right. So I don't have to, I'm more hurt and they keep, trying to keep score, then we're starting to verge into we can't necessarily change the partner. All we can do is what we do about it. We can either try to model this behavior for them so they can start seeing what it feels like when we are treated that way and hopefully start learning by example. Or we can drag our butts to some kind of counseling or therapy or pastoral work or whatever we need to do to work through this together. Or we can say, you know what, this isn't working and call it quits, usually. I'm not the biggest proponent of just ending things because they got hard. But I'm also not a fan of staying in a relationship that maybe should have ended a long time ago. And I'm not saying that your situation, Michelle, is one of those, but I do have to allow for a tiny bit of room for, if you're doing everything you can and you're seeking out resources and tools and help, and you're trying to work through things together, and they're still keeping up with toxic behaviors like one upping each other and things like that, despite trying to get help together and despite constantly working on this, there are some people in this life who are just we cannot control them. Like they're not going to change. I'm not saying that is your situation, but I encourage you to try these other steps first. Try to work through things together. But if you have been and you do and you try, and at the end of the day, they just refuse to and they keep doing the toxic behavior, then at that point, you need to have a conversation with yourself and ask yourself, how much of this kind of behavior am I willing to accept in my life before I finally draw the line? Hopefully, it doesn't come to that though. Hopefully, they watch this video and they're inspired to start trying to work on things, and this can be a happy ending for you. But do let me know after the fact if there's more to this that maybe I can help clarify, or if that was helpful enough. Either way, we'll stop here. Thank you so much for submitting your questions and for staying with me so far. I look forward to doing more of these lives and answering more of your guys' questions. And I look forward to catching you on the next one. Talk to you then.